Hello, this is John from kevolprogramming.com, and in this tutorial we're going to look at creating a basic Hello World Java servlet. So I've got Eclipse and Tomcat set up here, and I'm going to go to File, New Dynamic Web Project here, and let's give this a name. Let's call it Hello World. And this all looks fine to me, so let's click next, and that's fine, and that's okay. And this context root is actually the kind of stem of the URL after the domain name, and we'll be looking at that more later on, but hello_world is fine for me at the moment, or you might want to change it to something that looks nicer if you want. Then I'll click finish, and now we've got this project here. If I expand this, and we've got our Java resources folder, and we've got web content here, and in web content I can put JSPs and HTML files and this kind of thing, and this is where I create my servlets. So I'm going to right click, and now a Java servlet is it's a Java class that serves up HTML to a browser. So the idea is you start a servlet, and somewhere in the world a user goes to their browser and they go to the URL of your website, and that causes what we call a HTTP GET request to your Java servlet, which is just a Java class basically, and that class, which will be running continuously in your application server, that will then send some HTML to the browser, which the browser will display. And HTML is just a kind of text format for displaying stuff in browsers. So let's right click Java resources and go to new servlet here, and I'll call this, let's put it in a package called GUI, and I'll call it Hello World, and click next, and this all looks fine. And I'm going to give this a doGet and a doPost method, and you can also specify init and destroy, and init will actually be called when the servlet starts up, which it will do when you deploy it basically, and destroy will be called hopefully when it shuts down, but I'm just going to stick with the defaults for the moment. I'm going to click finish, and we'll be looking at the doPost method more in future tutorials, but in this tutorial I'm just going to stick with doGet. And what I can do now is I can use this doGet method to write outputs that will be sent to an internet browser. So to do that, because if I go to a URL that will basically go to this web application, it will invoke this doGet method and it will try to get data back from it. So what I'm going to do is I'll say print writer out equals response.get writer. Now the way this works is you've got a request parameter here and a response parameter, and request is basically deals with stuff that the client, which will be a web browser somewhere, sends to this servlet. So the request could hold URL parameters or other data from a form that's been submitted or whatever. And we're going to look at all that kind of stuff more in future tutorials. And response is basically stuff that we send back to the browser, and that's why we're doing response.getWriter, because this is going to give us a way of sending stuff back to an internet browser. So I'm going to add the import there with Control Shift and O in Eclipse, which is organize imports. And now I'm going to say here, let's just write some HTML. So I'll say out.println, and I'll write a opening HTML tag like this. And you don't usually, by the way, write HTML directly from a servlet, but in future we're going to look at JSPs, which are a way of having files with HTML in them that you can basically send back to your browser using this technology. Let's have a closing HTML tag, and in the middle there I'm going to say out.println hello world, and let's put a bold tag around that, and let's put one at the beginning as well, just so that we can see it really is HTML. And now finally, if I put the semicolon on there as well, finally I can run this servlet. So what will happen is, when I click the run button, it's going to start up a instance of Tomcat, and then if I go to a URL that corresponds to this servlet in a browser, it will send back this HTML and the browser will display it. And Eclipse has a great built-in browser. So let's just click the run button, and let's just make sure, actually, if I expand the source folder here, I'm going to make sure hello world.java is selected, and I'm going to click run, green run button. And yes, I want to run it on Tomcat 7, and let's say always use this server when running this project, and click next. And this is fine, so it's configured, it's ready to run, and click finish. And let's say that I want to restart the server every time, just so that I don't get any funny caching going on. Click OK. And now, with a bit of luck, we're going to go to a browser window in Eclipse, and we're going to see hello world. And you can also just view this in a normal browser, and this is an HTML file, so if I do right click and do view source on this, this is what we actually wrote, and this is what your browser will actually display. It will render this HTML with these kind of tags, these formatting tags and standard HTML tags, as text like this, for example. Let's just copy that, Control C, and I'll just go to Google Chrome here and paste that in, and we'll see that we can also see that here. So that's it for this tutorial. Join me again next time when we'll be looking at, we're going to look at JSPs, which are a way of putting HTML in a file instead of having to spit it out in your servlet like we've done here. So join me again next time, and until next time, happy coding.